I stuck the bookmark in my jeans before dashing out of my room and down the stairs like a swift rabbit. I came to the house entrance to see my sister coming out, carrying a popsicle and asking,
"Where are you going, Kyoko?"
I told her the station, hopped on my bike, which was tied by the door, and rode off to my destination. If Nagato isn't there, I think I'm going to laugh very loud at myself. Seems like I won't be able to laugh. As a careful bike rider, it took me till 7:10 to arrive at the park outside the station. As the park was far from the main road, there weren't a lot of people at this time. Under the noises of the trains and cars, I carried my bike and walked into the park. Under the lights of the equally spaced lampposts ahead, I could faintly see Nagato Yuki's slim figure sitting on one of the large park benches. She really is the sort of person whose presence isn't easily detected. Sitting so quietly in the park, if one didn't know better, she could be mistaken for a ghost. Nagato slowly stood up like a string puppet. She was still wearing her uniform. "Are you glad I finally came?" She nodded. "You couldn't have waited here every day." She nodded again. "Is it something you can't tell me at school?" Nagato nodded and then walked in front of me.
"This way."
After these two words, she turned and strode forward. Her way of walking was like a ninja. No footsteps could be heard at all. I could only follow behind Nagato, who had blended in with the night perfectly. After a few minutes of walking and watching the breeze blow her hair gently, we arrived at an apartment complex which was very near the station.
"Right here."
Nagato took out her pass and brushed it once against the electronic sensor at the entrance. The glass door ahead of us opened. I left my bike at the entrance and followed closely behind Nagato, who was already headed to the elevator. Inside the elevator, Nagato seemed to have something on her mind, but she said nothing, only staring at the floor number board. Finally, the elevator arrived at the 7th floor. "Excuse me, but where are we going?" It was late, but I had to ask. Nagato, who was walking slowly along the corridor, replied,
"My home."
I stopped at once. "Wait a minute! Why is Nagato taking me to her home?"
"Don't worry, there's no one else inside."
"Wait, what's that supposed to mean?" Nagato opened the door to room 708 and turned to face me.
"Enter."
"Are you serious?" I tried to stay calm and entered with trepidation. As I took off my shoes, Nagato pushed the door shut. I had a feeling of having just boarded a pirate ship. I apprehensively turned around at the ominous sound of the door closing.
"Come in."
Nagato said that flatly and took off her shoes as well. If the apartment had been dark, I could still have escaped, but sadly it was brightly illuminated, making the wide apartment look even wider. I guess this must be one of those posh condos. To be so near the station, the price had to be pretty high. But why did it look as if no one lived in there? Besides the living room, which had a small table with a warm blanket, there was nothing else. There were no curtains on the windows, and no carpet laid over the 10 tatami-sized wooden floor tiles.
"Sit down."
Nagato said before entering the kitchen, so I knelt down beside the living room table. The reasons a girl might have to invite a boy home while her parents are away were going through my head, when Nagato, moving like a mechanical puppet, placed a tray with a small teapot and teacups on the table, and sat down demurely in her school uniform across from me. After that, the unbearable silence. She didn't even pour tea for me, she just sat there looking at me expressionlessly. Seeing this, I felt more and more uneasy. Where's your family?"
"There isn't any."
"Well, I see they're not at home, but have they gone out?"
"I've always been the only one here since the beginning."
This was the first time I heard Nagato use such a long sentence. You can't be living on your own, can you?
"Yes."
Wow, a first-year high school girl living alone in a high-class apartment? There must be some special reason for this, right? I breathed a sigh of relief when I learned I didn't have to meet Nagato's parents. Wait a moment, this isn't the time to be relieved? Oh, right, what is it you want to see me for? As if remembering something, Nagato began to pour the tea into a cup and pushed it over to me.
"Drink."
I obediently started drinking the cup of tea. All this time, Nagato watched me like observing a giraffe in the zoo, so I couldn't concentrate on drinking.
"Is it good?"
This was the first time I heard her ask a question. Yeah. After I finished, I placed the cup on the table, and Nagato refilled it instantly for me. Since she had already refilled it, I might as well drink that too. Once I finished, she refilled a third cup for me. Finally, the teapot was empty. Nagato stood up about to refill the teapot. I stopped her at once. "Please, there's no need to refill the tea for me anymore. Can you please tell me why you brought me here?" After I said that, Nagato stopped what she was doing and went back to her sitting position like a video rewinding itself. She still said nothing. What is it that can't be said at school? Finally, Nagato moved her thin lips.
It's about Suzumiya Haruhi.
She straightened her back and sat elegantly.
And me.
She paused for a while. I really don't understand her speaking style. What is it about Suzumiya and you? At that moment, Nagato showed a look of discomfort. This was the first time I'd seen her show such an expression ever since I had met her. However, this emotional upheaval of hers was very minuscule. One had to be very observant in order to even notice it.
I cannot completely convey this in words, and there may be errors in the transmission of data. Regardless, listen. Suzumiya Haruhi and I are not ordinary humans.
Such an ambiguous statement so early on in the conversation. Well, I more or less realized that already.
That's not it.
She glanced at her hands lying on her lap.
I do not mean that in terms of deviations of personality. I mean what I said. She and I are not ordinary human beings like you.
I don't get what she's trying to say.
The integrated data sentient entity which oversees this galaxy has created a living humanoid interface in order to interact with biological entities. Me. My work is to observe Suzumiya Haruhi and upload the data obtained to the integrated data sentient entity. I have been doing this since I was born 3 years ago. In the last 3 years, no particularly unusual elements were discovered, and things were very stable. However, recently an external factor has now appeared beside Suzumiya Haruhi that cannot be ignored. And that is you.
What is this integrated data sentient entity anyway?
In the vast sea of data, known as the universe, there exist many highly sentient data entities that possess no corporeal bodies. These entities started out in the form of pure data. As all sorts of data gathered together, they became sentient, and finally they evolved by collecting other data. As they exist only as data and have no corporeal bodies, they cannot be detected even with the most advanced optical devices. As old as the universe itself, they expanded along with it, and the relative database became ever wider and larger. Ever since the formation of this planet, it should be the formation of this solar system, nothing in this universe is unknown to them. For them, the planet at the edge of the Milky Way is nothing special, because there are numerous planets in the galaxy with sentient organic life forms like this one, so numerous that they cannot be counted. However, as the bipedal life form's evolution on the third planet of this solar system became a success, these life forms gradually acquired the mental ability to actively seek knowledge. This organic life form living on the planet known as Earth started to become important. For a long time, we have always believed it impossible for organic life forms, who have limited data collection and transmission ability, to be able to acquire knowledge.
She said all this in a very serious tone.
The integrated data entity is very interested in all forms of organic life forms on Earth. It believes that by observation, it can find the solution to its own evolutionary dead end. Unlike the data entities who've existed since the beginning in their completed form, humans started off as incomplete organic life forms, rapidly evolving by expanding the data that they possessed, and using this data, which is saved and enhanced, to further advance themselves. It is normal for organic life forms all over the universe to become sentient, but only the humans on Earth have evolved continuously to a highly sentient level. The integrated data entity was very intrigued by this, and decided to observe these humans further. 3 years ago, we discovered a very abnormal data hotspot, unlike other humans appearing on the surface of this planet. The information sparks emitted from a certain point instantly covered the whole planet and started to spread towards outer space. In the center of all that is Suzumiya Haruhi. We do not know why that happened, nor do we know what effects it might have. Even the data entities are unable to fully process the new data being created. More importantly, humans are limited in the amount of data that they can process, yet Suzumiya Haruhi was able to create a flare of data on her own. The release of massive amounts from Suzumiya Haruhi continues to happen at completely random intervals. Furthermore, Suzumiya Haruhi seems unaware of all this herself. For 3 years, I have gone through all sorts of investigations on the individual known as Suzumiya Haruhi from all perspectives, but up to now I was still unable to discover her true identity. Concurrently, other parts of the integrated data entity have determined that she is the key to the evolution of the data entities and have continued their analysis of Suzumiya Haruhi. As they exist only as entities, they are incapable of speech and are thus unable to interact with organic life forms. But without speech, contact with humans would be impossible. Hence, the integrated data entity has created me to act as the communication bridge between them and humans.
Finally, Nagato picked up her cup and sipped her tea. She has probably said a year's worth of words for her. I don't know how to respond.